Okay. I ain't uploaded in a while. Kind of lost motivation, but now I'm back, I guess. And I got an idea of what poverty and, more importantly, what the culture of Section 8 taught me growing up in that environment and growing up around people who are struggling, as being somebody who was raised by their great grandma and growing up around a lot of single moms, growing up around people who kind of like just didn't really care about their situation, but they wanted everybody else to. So this is a few things that I've learned just from being around that. Like, okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the irresponsibility that came with financial gain. Like, a good example is you ever see somebody who talks about how they're struggling, their environment, whatever, but every time they get a lump sum of money or they get ahead, they do things that put them back in that position. They do things that don't really add to them or their kids. And growing up, I seen a lot of that. I seen people think that the only way they could ever have money is if they got it by luck or chance. And basically, if they would squander away $100 or $200, but then act like they don't know how to act when they get money. It's kind of like they're penny pinching. They know what to do when it comes to paying bills. They penny pinch. They don't want to, have good quality of life. Like, some people don't turn their air on because that's expensive. But then, why aren't you thinking like that when, it comes to gambling? And that's kind of my problem. It's a lot of that in Section 8. Okay, for example, I was born in 1997. So I grew up in the era of flashiness in the early 2000s. How many times do we see somebody have a box Chevy, a Crown Vic, whatever, sitting on 6s or 8s, 22s, 24s, sitting on something like that, $3,000-$4,000 paint job, $5,000-$6,000 rims, $1,000 or $2,000 car, all that work put into it. And where you see where they live at, they live in a trailer. They live in a trailer, or they live in an apartment, or they live at their mom's house or at their baby mom's if they got one, or they make not even more than $11 an hour, because that was pretty good when I was a kid. So you see all these people doing things, talking about how they're struggling, but when it come to actually struggling, they want to sit up there and act like they don't have a problem with some of the nonsense that they be on. And that's kind of the reason why I am the way I am. Another thing I guess is part two of my point is growing up, seeing people accept and I guess encourage degeneracy. Like, I grew up seeing people do that, and even as a kid, I don't know if I'm just different or what, but even as a kid, I would just ask, like, why does this person have the money to hang out with their friends, have the money to do all this, that, and the third, but I need McDonald's money if I want to go to McDonald's? I ain't got it when it comes to your kids or, whatever. Can't keep the internet on for more than 6 months at a time, or really 3 months at a time. But it's stuff like that. And I always thought that was stupid. I always thought that it's garbage to live like that, and it's garbage to treat people like you don't know what you're doing. Kind of like with some of our great grandparents and even before them. You know, you live in a 2-bedroom shack. Why do you have 13 kids? You live in an area where there ain't really hiring black people. Why do you have 9 kids? You know what I'm saying? It's questions like that. And that's just more so for the elders. Like, why do y'all do stuff like that? And excuse me if y'all can hear the people. I said people, but the kids on the trampoline in the background. I don't know if y'all can or not, but that's just kind of my thing. And also just questions for, like, you know, a lot of black folks and people that were in the struggle. It's like, you know, don't you think that you should pay attention more to your situation than the government? You know, like, how are you struggling, but you got the money to do this, you got the money to do that? And it might sound insensitive, but maybe it's exhausting, because I'm 27 and I just see it, you know. I just see it. Like, some people that I grew up around, a lot of people, I would say, never had a sense of consequence. So I guess it's just difficult to just deal with that for almost 30 years. It's very difficult to have sympathy for some people, because you just feel like man, like, what are you doing? But maybe it's not as simple as that, and maybe I need to see that, and I don't want to be insensitive. Maybe it's just a frustration, and I'm not really trying to understand something. But maybe I'm right. But who knows? But I know one thing: I can be more patient about it. And I would also, I guess, going to my second point. I would like to talk about how, with the degeneracy, right? And this is more so like the culture of, like, the nerd and the jock, right? Because that's very prevalent in the black community, very prevalent in the struggle. You know, growing up around people who had a lot of potential, still do, but they don't see it. And growing up as somebody with a lot of potential, I've noticed that it's hard for me, because there's places I could be if I was selfish. There's places I could be if I only cared about myself. And there's places that I understand I need to be because that's where God wants me. And it's kind of hard, because growing up around some folks, they treat you as if you can't be used, then you're valueless. They treat you as if you can't come up with quick results, then you don't mean anything. You know, I've been criticized more than people who don't take care of their kids. I've been criticized more than people who don't want to do right. I've been criticized more than people who don't care about anything, you know? And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And I've just noticed that, like, growing up in the area I've grown up in, I live in a small town, but I got big town dreams, I guess. Just growing up and just seeing where I want to go and just actively trying to do that, I'm just thankful that I'm patient enough to deal with some of the things I've dealt with, and I'm patient enough to not just leave people behind that need me, because I look at it like helping some people helps me, and it has, definitely. But I'm not gonna try to rush my life just so I can fit in with people who don't care anyway. And I feel like that's one of my biggest criticisms of myself. I try to rush my life. I try to rush my success, and I try to rush things that are literally promised to me. And I end up stumbling and making it hard on myself, because it's my ego that I'm putting on a pedestal, and these people's opinion of me that I'm putting on a pedestal. And back to what I was saying about the degeneracy thing. These people that I've seen, a lot of them really just a lot of them, a guy who doesn't take care of his kids, a guy who looks the aesthetic, that looks the part, he gets put more on a pedestal and he gets treated with respect more than somebody who's actually out here trying. You know? Like the guy that's trying to be humble, the guy that's doing his homework, the guy that's going to college, the guy that's doing a lot, trying to make it to the next step, to make it to the next level, does not get treated with the same respect that a guy who does not help his environment or anything gets. And it's hard to deal with because it sucks, man. Like seriously, it just does. Like I said, I've been criticized more than people who don't take care of their kids. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? I'm glad I'm going through that because it just means that I'm significant in some way. And that's humbling. And when it comes to that, and when it comes to all of the nonsense with that, I look at it like this. God is showing me where I should look at and where I shouldn't. Because I know what it is and I know where I'm going. And I shouldn't have people make me feel like I'm not going anywhere just because they don't understand where I've come. They don't understand how far I've come. They don't understand what I got going on. They don't understand any of that. And I've never been criticized by people who actually had anything going on for themselves. I've always been criticized by people who wanted to keep up with each other, who were in competition, who pretended to follow God, who were in church every Sunday, but they didn't have God in their hearts. I've always been criticized by people like that. So I guess I'm just looking for, a sign, but more so, it's not even about that. It's just God wants me, I feel like, to look in a different direction and understand that what he says matters more than what it looks like. And it matters more than what people see. Because they're going to be different. And back to how they treat like those type of dudes, the athletes too. When them athletes can't be athletes no more, they ain't worried about you. And God's showing me that. So I guess I just understand, and I'm learning more so I don't have to feel like I'm conforming or like I have that weight on my shoulders of these people's opinions. And I guess I'm just learning that. But this is SoundScapeSonata, and thank you for listening. Oh yeah, and I forgot. The Bible verse for perseverance is Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.